How's it going, everyone, and welcome to another video. Today we're looking at how you can make tons of gold utilizing the harvesting skill line in New World. But before we get into that, please consider giving the video a like and subscribing to the channel. It helps out massively. Now, let's get into it. In this video, we'll go over 3 different methods, compare the results, and give you the market prices for all the items in my server so you can decide which method is the most profitable for you in your server based on the prices there. A quick disclaimer before we get into method number 1, I'm doing all of these methods with a full 700 gear score set of harvesting equipment, a really nice sickle, top tier harvesting trophies, proficiency booster potions, 350 intelligence, and I am PvP flagged to really maximize my gains, and get a bit of Azos salt as well while grinding. You can even get a music buff, the most profitable moat perk on your sickle, and get top tier bags if you want to take things to another level in your runs. Let's take a quick look at the current prices for all the different kinds of fibers and threads in my server, Marama, so you can see how they compare to your server. As you can see, they all go for decent prices, but silk thread is significantly the most expensive, but I will have methods for each one in case that's not the case in your server. But now, let's get into method number 1, the hemp farming method. This is a really easy method that can be done in tons of places, but I like to do it over in this area in Windsward. The reason being is that I really like the aesthetic of the zone, and it's not the most popular area, plus there's a fast travel point right there. In this method, you'll just be gathering tons of hemp as fast as you can, and that'll rack up to tons of gold in the end. Feel free to look around New World maps for a spot that works for you, but you want to make sure there's enough spawns that you never run out of hemp to pick. Hemp has a respawn time of 8 to 17 minutes, depending on size, so keep that in mind when looking for your spot. You can even look for a spot with lots of other resources to get a variety of items, like this spot over on Restless Shore, but be warned, there's usually a ton of people here, but you should still get great results, just running back and forth over here. But once you have your spot picked out, feel free to use any of the ones mentioned before, get your gear together, pop a proficiency potion, get all buffed up, and get grinding. It's a great thing to do while watching a movie on the side, and just run around the area picking hemp. I like to have a fire staff and great axe, or rapier on while doing this, to speed up my runs between plants. Plus, gathering alacrity on the sickle can really help speed up those gains. But let's look at what you can expect to get from an hour of doing this. I grinded the area I mentioned in Windsward for 30 minutes, and ended up with everything you see on screen now. I then headed over and sold everything on the trade post, and was left with 2,223 gold, with the bulk of that coming from the fibers, which ended up bringing in 1,850 gold. That would mean, if I multiply that by 2, you could expect to be making roughly 4,447 gold per hour on this method. Not to mention, all of the aptitude crates I got during the grind that would just bring in even more profit. But with any method, check prices on your server before doing this. Fibers go for 0.25 gold per in my server. Maybe you can stand to make even more in your server, or you could make less. It's worth noting though, if you thought maybe refining before selling might add a bit of profit onto your runs, for me, in my server, it did not. Even with the full weavers set on when refining, I lost about 50 gold turning everything into linen, which goes for 0.68 gold in my server. And then even further, 200 gold, turning it all into sateen, which goes for 1.12 per in my server. So compare prices, and maybe it'll be profitable in your server, but it isn't in Marama. Next up, we got method number 2, and that's the AFK method. This one is great for when you want to get some extra gold, but you don't want to be constantly running around in game. To test this method, I use this awesome spotting cutlass keys that you can use as well, or just look for any area on New World maps with a large amount of the resource you're targeting. So for example, if silk thread goes for the highest in your server, look for a place with a couple of them spawning in one area, and then some other nice resources around it just as a bonus. What's great about this spot is that not only do you have the silk thread and wire fiber that you'll be getting, but there's also spin fiber here, and some weirdwood trees and runewood trees as well. There's also a couple of hemp plants nearby, but I skipped those during the grind to minimize the running around. But now, let's look at what I managed to get from sitting in this spot for 30 minutes, only hopping in the game every 10 minutes or so to check if anything spawned. As shown on screen, this is everything I got from the 30-minute grind. When I sold all of this on the trade post, I brought in 2,430 gold, which is amazing for how little effort I put in. That means if I multiply that number by 2, you can expect to get 4,860 gold per hour doing this AFK method, which is amazing, because you can make even more than in the hemp method for significantly less effort. Plus I got a ton of aptitude crates as well during this time, just increasing profits even further. You will of course have to check prices on your server before starting, and it's worth pointing out, in the time I did this, I wasn't griefed by anyone, but it was a pretty peak hour in a high populated server like Marama, so it's a pretty reliable spot. But if too many people are using this spot after the video goes live, just look for another spot on New World maps with a similar amount of resources that's out of the way. There's tons of spots just as good as this one out there. And finally, we have method number 3, the multitask method. For this one, just target the material that goes for the most in your server. For testing, I went with silk thread, as it sells for 0.63 gold per. From there, find a spot not too far away from a fast travel point, with a lot of the resource spawns that you want. I use this little area in Weaver's Fen, because there's lots of spawns, and it's quick to grab them all. What I do from there is, I spawn into the fast travel point, run down and hit all the spawns, including any of the wire fiber, if they're up, and then teleport out to continue doing whatever it was I was doing in New World before. Then, I come back 10 to 15 minutes later, and repeat the process. Now, to test the numbers, I did a quick run through, and it takes me roughly 6 minutes to go through and gather everything in this area before teleporting out. In that time, this is everything I got, but for testing, I didn't grab any wire fiber. Not a crazy amount of resources, but it did sell for 651 gold on the trade post. Taking into account that 15-minute wait, let's say you can do this about 3 times an hour, which would mean you'd be bringing in 1,953 gold per hour for pretty much 18 minutes of harvesting. It's not bad, especially if you're getting a lot of other things done on the side. Plus, you'll get a couple of aptitude crates as well to get those profit numbers up. But if you want to stay really gathering focused, you can turn this into a route, and after gathering all the silk thread and wire fiber, head south to gather up all the fibers, before heading east to gather up more wire fiber. From there, I just head a bit north to the fast travel point and teleport back to the start of the route to repeat the process. If done right, you can loop this route over and over, and the plants should be respawning as you finish the lap. Doing laps over here for 30 minutes straight, I managed to gain all of these resources. There's a couple of iron spawns and Azoth pools around this area that are worth getting as well to increase those profits. From selling everything on the trade post, I brought in 2,256 gold, which if multiplied by 2, would mean that you could stand to gain roughly 4,512 gold here per hour. Of course, if prices are different in your server, you can make more or less, but overall, a very decent amount of gold for how easy it is to do. Plus the aptitude crates will just increase your numbers. But that covers 3 methods you can use to make gold with the harvesting skill in New World. I'll post an image now of the numbers side by side, so you can have an overview of all the methods. Plus, I'll have a list of all the current market prices for the main selling items used in these methods, so it'll be easy for you to compare prices with your server. It really is shocking to see that the AFK method was the most profitable for me in testing, considering it requires by far the least amount of work to do. And I got so much else done on the side. It just goes to show if you find a good spot, it can be really profitable. So play around with different locations until you find the right spot for you. Let me know which of these methods is most profitable for you in your server. And if the video was of any help, please consider giving the video a like and subscribe to the channel. It helps out massively. But until next time, have a good one. Thanks for watching another video, and a massive shout out to all the patrons who support the channel as a YouTube member and over on Patreon. If you'd like to learn how to make gold utilizing the logging skill, click on the video to the left. Or if you'd like to watch an influencer transmog contest I hosted, while you're getting some harvesting done, click on the video to the right.